goes without saying that separation is an extremely difficult event to go through, and even more so if there's other little people involved like children. So keeping the right mindset and communicating with your ex-partner will make a huge difference. So tell me, how can couples separate, I guess, with minimal impact on the children?
The priority, I suppose, is to remain respectful to the other parent, particularly in the children's hearing and presence. It can be a very difficult time for the parents, but what people often forget when they're so caught up is that it can be even more difficult for the children. Their family unit has changed dramatically, and sometimes if they're quite little, they don't understand what that means or what it looks like. So providing them with assurance and reassurance, maintaining consistency with their routines so that they feel secure, reassuring them that they're both loved, that they're loved by both parents and that won't change. Those sorts of things will assist them a lot.
As I was actually talking to a parenting expert the other day, he's a psychologist, and he said, we were talking about technology, and he said there's just tech, and but good, you look at it like food. So that, good tech is like good food and bad tech is like bad food. So you want your kids to just be consuming as much good food as they can, and it's the same with good technology. And I think it'd be the same with exposing them to
communication.
Good communication.
That's right.
Is like just
and interactions.
Exactly. So look at it like that: as am I exposing my children to communications and interactions that are healthy or harmful?
Yeah.
And it's if you've got to have a vent and you're angry, sure, you want your kids to see that sort of emotion, that you're not unemotional, but not where you're tearing apart someone they love. I guess in front of them is a really huge thing.
Absolutely.
And just putting on a happy face and trying your best to have really great engagement with that partner, because kids feel like they're not stupid. But if you can't have a positive interaction, then maybe you need to organise something else. Would that be your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. And just keeping in mind separating the adult issues, and not discussing them in the presence of the children.
Yeah, keeping them, it's like watching R-rated movies in front of your kids. Just don't do it.
Exactly.
So, I guess, which moves on to our next question. How can they, if couples are struggling, how can they separate when there's been a communication breakdown?
There's a host of things they could try to assist. Counselling for co-parents, people that are separated but are trying to co-parent together. There's a host of parenting courses through services like Relationships Australia or Family Relationship Centre that help people communicate with their former partner or spouse, and also help them with tools on how to support their kids through that process as well. Establishing some guidelines is good. For example, if people are finding that they're having phone calls where they just go around in circles and then they end up hanging up on each other, perhaps try email. Whilst there's pros and cons to every form of communication, email is the type of communication where it's more formal, so usually what you write is a bit more considered. You can sleep on it before hitting send, all those sorts of things. Or if the communication has broken down completely, they might need the assistance of professionals, whether that's a psychologist and lawyers to assist them to work through the issues, or both.
Mediation.
Absolutely, mediation is good. There's also another process called the collaborative law process, where both parties have the assistance of a lawyer, so they can have their own independent legal advice and know their rights and entitlements and what steps they should and shouldn't take. And then there's a series of roundtable discussions where they can look, this is what I think is best for our children, and this is why I think it's best for our children, so that meaning behind what they're proposing isn't lost. A whole host of things that they can look to for assistance if communication has broken down.
I love it. So what about the financial impact? Is there any tips and advice on that?
I suppose the best thing to do is to get legal advice quite early on, because
a lot of people put it off, don't they? They'll be separated for a year, and then that gets really messy.
Yeah, and people have these misconceptions that going to see a lawyer means that they can't work it out themselves, or that they can't communicate, and that's not the case at all. Our role is not just to assist in negotiating or to step them through a process. Our role is to prepare documents to secure
Your
assets
wishes, yeah.
and secure parenting arrangements and all those sorts of things. You know, a lot of people come to us and say, this is our agreement, can you formalise it?
Yeah.
So people get a bit concerned about taking that first step to see a lawyer when in reality a lot of the times it just means that they are informed sooner and they know what steps to take or not to take, which can, if they take the wrong steps, it can impact them financially.
Yes.
And I think another thing that assists is having some discussions and working out sooner rather than later what would be a good outcome. For example, some people might hold on to a property for a long, long time and pour all this money into it and ultimately it's going to be sold anyway. You know, sort of having those discussions about those things sooner rather than later to minimise financial impact. But of course, if they need financial advice, they'll need to go to an accountant or financial advisor. But there's a host of steps they can take to ensure that there's no significant financial impact.
So as you can see, communication is key in situations like separation, but so is, you know, moving quickly in a way and seeing and getting a lawyer's advice, I guess, on what you need to be worried about and concerned about. So if you are after expert advice to help make your separation go as smoothly as it can, speak to the team at Ruhl Family Law Centre today.